and welcome to Books Unbound, the podcast where we unbind books to get to their hearts with your hosts, us. It's Ariel and
Raeleen.
Yay!
It's
me. Here for another episode.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be a good one. We are going to be doing our quarterly update.
So exciting.
If you're new around here, which you might be, if you're new around here, every year, Raeleen and I set a set of elaborate goals. Big dreams, big plans. You know, we get caught up in the enthusiasm of the new year and we're like, we're going to change our lives. And so we set these goals and then we work as hard as we can throughout the year to accomplish those goals. And usually, like for the first few years of the podcast, we would just not really talk about them throughout the year. And then just at the end of the year, do a big episode where we're like, okay, did we do them?
Yeah. Did we even remember what our goals were? Who knows?
Yeah. And we would often forget them.
Yeah.
And then we got some feedback from people who were just like, you should update us more on your goals throughout the year. Like, they're fun to hear about. And we're like, well, we love checking in about them. So let's do it. So we've implemented doing these quarterly episodes where once a quarter, we check in on our goals. We look at our progress. We talk about how they're actually functioning within our lives. So it's time for the halfway through the year episode. When this episode goes out, it will be July, which is awesome because it'll actually go out on Canada Day. It'll go out on July 1st.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So it marks the halfway point of the year perfectly. The very first day of the 7th month. Yeah, we're going to see where we're at throughout this episode. Before we do, I have to talk about some stuff. Last week's episode was full of dreams, excitement, joy. I was a girl with a mini truck who was going to go to her first event. And then it rained and it got canceled. Yeah. So basically, before 2 weeks before the event, I don't remember, I talked with the manager of the event space and I was like, what happens if it rains? And she was like, if it rains, we will postpone the event. We will not cancel it. We'll still do it, but we won't do it when it rains because people don't come out. She's like, I want you to have a day when lots of people come to the truck. And they were also planning other stuff in the square. They were going to be handing out snow cones to children. And they're like, no one wants snow cones in the rain. I'm like, no. She's like, there's going to be a little stage set up where my brother, CJ, the editor of this podcast, Hero, an awesome bro, is going to be playing some music because I was like, can my brother play music? And they were like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So CJ is going to play music on the stage, but since they had the stage set up, they were also going to be doing some drag queen story time 2 times throughout the day to like read books to children. And so I was like, they'd set up such a nice day of stuff. And they're like, none of that will work in the rain.
Yeah, nobody wants to stand around and listen to live music.
No one wants to stand around. Live music, like story time, like snow cones, like none of this works in the rain. And even me, I was like, honestly, I would be bummed, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I don't want to sit in the rain for hours next to a bunch of books I'm worried are getting ruined.
Yeah, like unless you had some kind of gazebo over the truck, nobody's safe.
Which I'm thinking about investing in that, and me and my dad have also been thinking about maybe making like a custom cover, like awning type thing that we could do. But even so, if the rain is too hard, rain doesn't actually fall down; it falls sideways. Exactly. And I'm like, no cover could protect that.
No, it's true.
And so I was like, okay, I understand. If it rains, that's what we'll do. So on the week of, so we recorded the podcast episode on Monday, and that following Sunday, so a week later, was supposed to be the event. On Monday, it said like 30% chance of rain on Sunday. And I was like, oh God in heaven. Tuesday, 40% chance of rain. Wednesday, 50% chance of rain. It was going up and up and up until on Friday, which we agreed would kind of be the day to call it, to like make a decision, to give people enough notice. But also, like, I did a lot of studying about how much can we trust weather forecasting. It turns out that within 3 to 4 days is extremely accurate. Like, scientists have really figured out how to tell weather 3 days.
It's so crazy to me. I don't understand that.
Is insane. Because it'll literally be on the app. It'll be like, it's gonna rain at 1.
Yeah,
and you're like,
how do you know that?
Yeah. it is raining at 1. That's very fascinating, right? So obviously things can still change, and it's all about like percentage probability of rain and everything. But anyways, it's very accurate within 3 days. So I was like, okay, on Friday, that's when we call it. And on Friday I check and it says 80% chance of rain. And I'm like, so I call the event manager, Stephanie. She's so nice. And I was like, Stephanie, and she's like, are you calling about this horrible rain we're about to have? And I'm like, yes. She's like, yeah, I think we should postpone. I'm like, I've been working so hard. I've been working so hard to get the truck ready. But I totally agree with the decision. And also, again, I'm not bummed about it because of 2 things. Number 1, it's postponed. It's happening on July 14th.
Yay, okay.
Which,
not too far.
Yeah, so it's not that far away, basically 2.5 weeks away from now. Like, it's not that far away. And it's now during Jazz Fest in Halifax. So I'm going to order some jazz books for the truck, which I think is so fun, right? So that's really cute. But then also I'm not bummed because I just basically was able to take the weekend off.
Yeah, you can relax a little bit.
Which I haven't done in a really long time. And like, it just felt so nice to have a couple days where I was like, you know what? There was a couple things left that I needed to do for the miniature truck. And like Friday and Saturday were going to be busy days for the truck. And I was like, let's take them off. I'm taking these days off. And I didn't really do anything. Like me and Connor, we went to Halifax. We went to our friend's birthday. We just went to food. We walked around. And then I drove home on Sunday and I was like, actually, this was very nice to take some time off. And the truck's ready. So like, it's not like my work was for nothing. Yeah. It'll just be used later on.
Exactly. That's great.
I mean, yeah. The other big thing is I do have 2 other events. So this coming weekend, I have signed up. Okay. I'm trying to find really fun, cute, quirky places to take the truck, right? This first festival that I have signed up to, I'm so unbelievably hyped about. It's called Privateer Days. It's in a tiny town in Nova Scotia called Liverpool, and it's basically a pirate festival.
So silly.
I know, it's so cool. And so basically, I guess they've been running this festival for like a really long decades. Like they've been doing this festival for a really long time. God. And there's like, you know, pirates walking around and a parade and all sorts of stuff.
That's hilarious.
And it's like part of their history where like it was a port city and they had pirates there. And I've leaned in. Okay, because I just think it's so fun and so cool. Privateers were basically pirates who were given a fancy letter from the crown that was like, for this week, you're not a pirate. You're a privateer. Ooh. Please, we do give you permission to go and blow up those American ships and we won't say anything about it. It was during like the American Revolution and stuff. And so it's just so interesting and fun historically to like think about pirates being given permission for a little bit. Like it's just so fun. So I bought so many pirate books, Raeleen, like a lot of copies of Treasure Island for it. Another reason that I'm excited about this event is because it really goes with kind of what I'm wanting to do with the truck, in that town does not have a bookshop. And so I think it's really cool that I'll show up and be like, I've got some books for you guys.
Bring books to the people. And that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I want to do with the truck, right? Bring it to rural communities that don't have bookshops. Like, that is so special. So I have that. Then the next weekend, do you remember my friend Jamie, who I connected with because they run a small press here in Nova Scotia? So Jamie is part of the team that runs another very small town's rural pride event.
Oh, okay.
Petite Queer Pride is what it's called. And I'm like, I was like, wait, could I be a vendor for that? Could I come like bring like a bunch of gay books, like just LGBT titles? And they were like, yeah. So I had to like, sign up and everything. And I applied and they accepted me. And so now I'm buying a bunch of queer books to bring to that event, which I'm so excited about. So that's next weekend is Pirate Days. A weekend after that is Pride event. Weekend after that is Jazz Festival.
Gosh. Oh, you have a big opening then. This is like, boom, boom, boom.
There's
book truck is
so much going on. I know. So by the time that this episode episode comes out, I will have done the pirate event.
Thank God. I'm really glad that that's actually the first one you're doing, because I think it'll be a hilarious story for sure.
I think it's going to be so funny. And I also think, like, I just want to... I'd love to move some of these pirate books off of the truck.
Yeah, because you're not going to want them
so
later.
I know, right? Like, my friend was saying, they were like, Nova Scotians love pirates.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? You're right. So anywhere I take the pirate books, I think people will be happy about pirate books. But still, like, I think it'd be good to move these pirate books to the hands of the good people.
Absolutely.
And then shuffle
Okay, question
along,
for you. Are you going to dress up like a pirate for that event?
Great question. I have thought about this. I don't think I will, because the idea of I like your.
I'm like, how dare you? Honestly,
the idea of sitting in the sun dressed like a pirate for 8 hours seems really. But
even the stripy shirt you're wearing right now could fit in. True. It could be a
so
like.
I think I'll do
pirate
like
light.
like Disney bounding, where they like dress up as a character, but like not truly like
just like
character.
Modern clothing, but so it kind of looks like a character.
I think I'm going to do that.
I think that's a great idea.
I also have that cool dress. I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about, but it's kind of old-timey. It's like beigey gray. I might wear that because I feel like that would go really
I want you to Disney bound as Captain Jack Sparrow.
That is a Disney character.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, wait a minute. You can really lean in there.
It's going to be really fun. So I will give you guys all the update about how that goes, but then also if you're in the area and can go to Petite Queer Pride, that promises to be a fun day. And then if you're still around Halifax, I'm going to be there in July 14th. So Sweet. Then I am in talks right now with a couple other events. But also, if you run, host, or know about another cool festival that you think I should go to that would have fun themed books I could choose, reach out on the Bissette Books website, bissettebooks.com, because I would love to like apply to more quirky stuff. So anyways, I don't have the fun update I wanted to have this week, which was going to be like, I did a first event.
But now for the next 3 weeks, like weather permitting, we will have fun stories at the beginning of the next 3 episodes. So that's really exciting.
I know. Awesome. It's going to be awesome. All right. How's your time? You had a solstice.
Yes, we did.
Woo!
We celebrated another Sabbath over the weekend, me and my 2 buddies. So the one that happened most recently was Litha, which is also known as Midsummer. So this is the halfway point of the year and all that jazz. I feel like it's the one that I know the least about in terms of like what it's supposed to represent and stuff. But for me, I really leaned into the sun. Like it's all about the sun. Yes. It's midsummer, all of that. And so I planned this, like, I want to say a month ago, I had planned to make this very specific loaf of bread. I wanted to make a loaf of bread that was shaped like the sun. Yeah. And so I just looked up sun bread recipes. I was like, I don't know, maybe somebody's made something. And there was one, there's probably lots, but there was one that I found that was just perfect. It was this like smiley face sun with like little twirlies around its head kind of thing, so it looks like a little sun. And I was like, I'm so excited to make this. It was my first ever time baking bread with yeast. I only make sourdough so far, like it's all I've ever done. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna try this yeasted bread, and it was so fun. It was so fun to make, and now I'm like excited to try and make a different type of bread for the next one. So that's my goal. I'm like, I just want to keep unlocking different powers of bread making. I want to become a bread making master. That's my new goal in life. So that was really fun. It turned out really well. We had a beautiful feast. We had a little picnic in a forest, and the weather was really great. And actually it started to rain a little bit, which was perfect because we thought it was going to be like blazing hot. It was supposed to be like 32 degrees. Okay. It was supposed to be really ugly. Yeah. And I was actually wearing a crocheted top. So that would have been bad. So that was another thing. I spent the night before, like literally from the moment I got home from work around like 5:30 or whatever until about 1 a.m, both making bread, making this other food that I made, and finishing my crocheted top. I thought it was going to be easy and breezy, but everything took so much longer than I thought it would. But I managed to get it done. So I'll put we'll share a link to the crop top pattern that I made. It was basically just a little crop top with granny squares along the bottom that were sunflowers. So it was pretty darn cute. But yeah, it would have been way too hot if it was 32 degrees. But it was a lot of fun to make, and I'm excited to see what I make for the next one. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe shorts. I kind of want to crochet some shorts. So
I have never thought about crocheted shorts before.
I know. So if anybody has any really cool crochet short patterns that they've seen, like hit me up, because I have not done any research yet. I don't know what kind of shorts I see. But...
Okay, I just had to Google crochet shorts because my brain was like literally like, how long are we talking here? These are cute, actually. They look really cozy.
Yeah, like they could be pajama shorts after I'm done or whatever, right? Like, so I'm excited about that.
Oh, there's a lot of cool options here. Like a really flowy one I'm seeing, but also some cool striped ones.
Oh, stripes is cool. Stripes is cool.
Potential.
But yeah, so I feel like I've spent the past couple of weeks really like preparing for this event and stuff. So I spent a lot of time like watching TV and crocheting. So I'm pretty excited to just take a chill pill and like get back into reading for a little bit. I feel like I haven't read much lately because I've just been like doing other things, which is fun. That's what I've been wanting to do. As we'll talk about in the quarterly update, that is one of my big goals for the year. But I also want to be reading. I have to find that balance. If I'm reading not at all, then I am a little sad. So
yeah, I don't think that's gonna spark joy either. Yeah. Well, talking about reading, let's jump in and do a quick reading update. All right, so I will start us off. I, first of all, finished a book. I read a book, and that is The Rules Do Not Apply by Arielle Levy. Arielle Levy joined The New Yorker as a staff writer in 2008 and received the National Magazine Award for Essays and Criticism in 2014 for her piece Thanksgiving in Mongolia. She is the author of the book Female Chauvinist Pigs and was a contributing editor at New York for 12 years. This book came out in 2017. So I was trying to remember where I got this book, Raeleen. Yeah. I can't quite recall. I know I got it used somewhere, and I wonder if there was a sticker on it at some point that I like peeled off. And usually I like to leave the receipt in places, and
it could be in a different book that you bought at the same store. Yeah, that's always the problem.
Exactly. So I know I picked this up used. I had heard of this book like online or something, and I thought it sounded cool. And then I remember I saw it for pretty cheap, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, it's a very pretty book. I love the cover for it. And I thought I'd give it a shot. So I listened to the audiobook of this for like the first half, and then the second half I listened to the audiobook but read along with the book, you know, that. Like, and which I really like doing. I think that's really nice. Okay, how do I want to review this? First of all, I liked it. Okay. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I think that if you like Wild by Cheryl Strayed, I think I said this last week too, but if you like Wild, I do think that you would like this book. It's about a woman who's like super clever, super intelligent and interesting, and like she feels very powerful. Like there's a lot of strength in her, but like lots of things have gone awry in her life, and many of them by herself. Like she did them to herself kind of a thing. Like with Cheryl Strayed, like she talks about how she cheated on her husband and she started taking drugs and like she doesn't really blame anyone else. She's like, I did those things and there are reasons why I did those things, and that's what the book is. But like she's like, I did those things. So there was a similar thing here where like Arielle cheats on her wife and has to just kind of reckon with why did she do that. And it's very, very fascinating to read someone be so open about that and is able to like look at it, not objectively, it's not objective at all, but just look at it and talk about it and discuss it, and like why did it happen, how did I feel while it was happening, and all those sorts of things. Was really great. So I think like if you like Wild, if you like memoirs like that, you would like this book. If you are interested in journalism, I think you would really like this book because she is a journalist. Like it says in her biography, she has been writing for The New Yorker for a really long time, and she's like an investigative journalist who like goes abroad and will do these really cool pieces. And so there's lots of stories in here of she's like, I went to Mongolia and did this thing, and I went to South Africa and did this thing, and it's just like these are such cool stories that she gets to report on and everything. But kind of the synopsis puts it well. It says, when 38-year-old New Yorker writer I keep saying Ariel, but I know that it's Arielle because she read her own audiobook and she's like, this is Arielle Levy. And I'm like, damn it, Arielle. Okay. When she left for a reporting trip to Mongolia in 2012, she was pregnant, married, financially secure, and successful on her own terms. A month later, none of that was true. So basically, she has a really traumatic miscarriage. She has her marriage completely falls apart, and all of these other things that were in place just because of all of this, like, just fall apart. And so it's a really fascinating story of how she kind of rebuilt from it. So overall, really liked it. Her writing was really good. And I do really recommend the audiobook as well. It's only like 4.5 hours long. She reads it and she's a great narrator. Yeah. She did an awesome job. So I overall had a good time. I just felt like I never really connected with her. And I don't know what that was. I'm like, is it just I read it at the wrong time, or maybe I haven't gone through anything similar enough to what she's gone through, so it didn't like resonate with me, or I don't know. Like the writing style was really great. It was clear and crisp, and it was very easy to understand and follow, which I liked. I just never felt like I was there with her.
But with Wild, we did. So it's
with Wild,
even though it's a similar thing. Like we haven't experienced anything she's experienced, but
I've experienced none of the things Cheryl Strayed has experienced, let alone walking the PCT. You know what I mean? Like none of the stuff that brought her to having to do this thing did I understand, nor the thing she chose to do to get over all the other
really
stuff.
Connected with it. So
but I connected with her so much, so I'm not sure where the disconnect was with this one. And I think also just, I don't know, with memoirs, it's so interesting because God, it feels almost like unfair to review a memoir because it's someone's life, right? So I'm not reviewing Ariel Levy's life or her experience. I'm just like the book itself. I just felt kind of like I wasn't exactly sure what the point was. Like, was there a lesson? Was there an overall message that she's like really trying to push across? And I feel like with memoirs, it's kind of tricky because on the one hand, there doesn't need to be. Yeah. It can just be a testament of this is what happened to me. This is my story. And I think that's really cool. But I've noticed that like the memoirs that I really tend to like have a little bit more. Yeah. It's not just like, this is what happened to me, but there's a little bit more of like, what can we all learn from this?
Yeah, that brings it up to the next level. I agree with that.
Yeah. So I'm glad I read it, but it's not a new favorite.
Okay.
I'll leave it there. Okay, then I want to talk about the book that I got this week. I bought a book. Ooh. And what's funny is, I actually bought two, I guess, but what's funny is I bought this while I was in Prince Edward Island, but then I left it in my brother's apartment when we were in Halifax, and I couldn't haul it last week. Okay. And I was just like, that's so annoying. It was a real situation, let me tell you. It almost tore Connor and me apart because I was like, where is my book? You took my book. And he was like, I put it in a tote bag. And I'm like, where's the tote bag? He's like, I left it at the apartment. I was like, no. No, it was actually very funny that we were fighting about it because we weren't actually fighting. Yeah, we were just Anyway. It is The Art of Gathering: How We Meet and Why It Matters by Priya Parker. Have you heard of this one?
I don't think so. The cover is really cool though.
Yeah. Let's see. In The Art of Gathering, Priya Parker argues that the gatherings in our lives are lackluster and unproductive, and they don't have to be. We rely too much on routine and convention when we should focus on distinctiveness and the people involved. At a time when coming together is more important than ever, Parker sets forth a human-centered approach to gathering that will help everyone create meaningful, memorable experiences, large and small, for work and for play. Yeah, and it says, a bold approach to how we gather that will transform the ways we spend our time together at work, at home, in our communities, and beyond. So it's basically about strategies you can use to make gathering with friends, with work, with family more meaningful and more fun. And this is not the kind of book that I would normally gravitate towards, but the two women that ran the Anne of Green Gables trip with me, both of them love this book. And we're like, Ariel, you have to read it. Like you would love this book. And one of them was telling me all about how much she loves throwing parties. She Courtney throws and she was telling me about some of her parties, and I'm like, these are so much fun. Like she just really leans in. It reminded me of stuff that you do with the solstice stuff,
costumes and theme food.
Yeah,
it's the best.
Yeah, exactly. And I was telling her, I was like, I've been throwing yearly Christmas parties lately, and for the last few years, and I've been enjoying them so much. And we did a Hot Ones party, and I told her all about the chicken wing party and everything. And she was like, you have to read this book. She's like, you will love it because it's just about why it's important to gather with people and how you can be intentional about it, and how it can be how you can kind of take it to the next level by doing certain things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's interesting. And then I did this whole trip with all these people where literally what we were doing was like gathering. And I was like, you know what? I do want to read that book because that sounds neat. That sounds really cool. So yeah, I got this and I think it sounds neat. And if you are like the kind of person who likes throwing events or gathering with friends or maybe it's part of your job, like maybe you have to run events or host events or even do meetings. Like it sounds like that's a big part of it as well. Courtney was telling me that when the author was writing the book, the pandemic happened, which completely changed the concept of gathering because now so much gathering was happening via Zoom. And so there's like apparently a chapter about that too. So that sounds cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
Neat. All right. And then I want to talk about what I'm currently reading, and then we can shift over to what you're currently reading. I am currently reading Western Lane by Chetna Maru.
Ooh.
So this is another book that I bought, and I'll talk about where I bought this in a couple of minutes. You'll see why. I saw this in a shop, and I texted it to Raeleen. I was like, were we just talking about this book?
Yes, we were.
And you were like, we picked it out for the truck. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I didn't end up buying this one for the truck, right? Because I hadn't read it. And I was a bit like, I don't know, like, if I'd like it or not. But then I saw it in the shop, and I was like, love this cover. Love the vibe. So tiny, so small. Sounds great. So I bought it. And then a couple days ago, I just picked it up and started flipping through it and started reading it. And I was like, whoa, I'm liking this.
Ooh,
so now I'm like a third of the way through. This is about 3 daughters and their dad, who's the mom has just passed away, and the dad is a little bit like, whoa, what do I do with these 3 daughters? Like, what how do I move us on? And so what he decides is that they're all going to be really good at squash. He's like, that's it. We're a squash family now. And it's not like, I'm saying it in a funny way. It's a very emotional, moving book. Yeah. But like, that's what happens. Like, he's like, we're squash people now. And so they just start playing a lot of squash. That's awesome. And again, this is exactly for like what the vibes I'm going for my shelf on sports books that aren't really about sports, where it's like, yeah, it's about squash, but clearly it's not about squash. It's about grief and them as a family. And it's so good. Like, really good. Yay. I'm really enjoying it, and I should finish it really soon. Like, I read the first third in a couple of hours, so this is awesome. That's so exciting. I don't recommend it yet, but I think I will recommend it next week. You know what I mean? Once I actually finish it, I think it will be really good. I just noticed that the cover for people who are listening to the audio is just 3 girls. I think it's the same girl, like photoshopped on here 3 times, but 3 girls like with rackets, but then a bunch of like circles all over the cover, like kind of like polka dots or like confetti, but they're all black, and it looks like squash balls that have left stains. But I just noticed that they're like raised. Oh yeah, they're like that's embossed. Nice. It feels lovely. So yeah, so that's kind of my reading update this week. What about you? I know that you're currently in the middle of something big.
Yeah, so I'm still just reading A Dance with Dragons. Like I said when I started it, I'll probably be reading it for the next few weeks, especially because I haven't been reading much lately. I haven't made a lot of progress. Right. I'm now like approaching the 40% mark, so I'm not quite halfway yet, but I feel like in the next week or 2 I'm going to spend a lot of time doing that because I've watched way too much like TV while crocheting, and so I'm like, I don't want to watch anything at all for the next little bit. So my plan is to read a lot, and it's like the sun is coming out, so I like sitting outside and reading. So yes, I'm still excited about it. I'm enjoying it. I'm definitely seeing some things that I'm like, wait, this wasn't in the show. At least I don't think it was. So it's cool to read the book after all this time. Like, it's been so long since we finished watching Game of Thrones. So it's like all kind of gone from my brain a little bit, but I'm noticing things where I'm like, oh, who is this character? Like, I don't think this character was in the show at all, unless I'm just completely forgetting. So it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it.
That's awesome. I love that. All right, well, that is our reading update for this week. A little short and sweet, but we are now moving on to Le Pièce de Résistance. The halfway through the year check. Halfway through the year, Raeleen.
Yeah.
Does that feel shocking to you? Does that feel on par? What do you feel?
It feels like, I would say 40% shocking. Like, it's a little shocking.
I agree.
But not crazy. Like,
I completely agree.
I did feel like the past few months went by fast, but like I was seeing it happen as it was happening. So I was like, oh man, it's really starting to speed along. But no, and we talked about this at my Letha gathering as well, because midsummer is the halfway point through the year. So we talked a lot about like, what were our goals that we set for ourselves at the beginning of the year? Have we been keeping up with them? What are things that we could be doing better? So we have a lot of discussions like that at those parties, which is nice. And so that didn't have anything to do with reading goals, though. That was just like life goals stuff. So I was like, okay, I've done a little bit, but there's more I could be doing. And I feel that way about my reading as well. Going through and like checking all my goals and seeing where I'm at right now has made me realize like, oh, I haven't been like trying that hard. So this is like the kick in the butt that I think I needed, is talking about it for everyone to
I know
hear.
we basically talk about this we've been doing the quarterly updates. Now this is our second year. So like for 2 years we've been talking about this, but gosh, you can't have goals. There's no point making goals if you're not also prepared to check in with them.
Yeah.
Because it is so helpful and revolutionary to be like, okay, I set these goals. Every month or every quarter, I'm going to check in on them, because you forget them and they fall to the wayside because of life being so busy, or you realize like, actually, I've been stressing myself out about this goal. I don't even care about it anymore. Like, it's time to shed that. So yeah, it's so helpful. Connor and I, on our drive home yesterday, we did the same thing. We were like, let's go through our goals, because we're at the halfway point now. And I was actually prompted by this episode, because I was like, tomorrow, Connor was like, what's tomorrow look like for you? And I was like, we're recording our halfway update. And we were like, let's look at our goals. And it was the same thing where I was like, okay, you know what? Some of these goals are going really well, and some of these I still really want to do, and I just have kind of fallen off of. So how about you start us off, Raeleen, by talking to us about your reading resolutions? Is that where you wanted to start?
Yeah, totally. I have a lot though, so I think I might throw to you halfway through, because I know we talked about this briefly over text yesterday. Both of us went back and re-listened to our goals episode, but just our portions. So I relearned what all of my goals were, and I thought I had like 3, but I actually have like 8. Like I have so many, which all kind of like come together, but anyways, let's just start from the top. So my first thing that I said in the goals episode was that I want to read my physical TBR. And so far I've been doing a decent job of that. I have strayed a little bit, but I have read 18 books off of my physical TBR, which I don't know the exact percentage, but that's like, I want to say about 75% of my total reading for the year so far. So I'm feeling good about that. My second thing I said was that I kind of had this theme for the year, which was follow your heart, is what I called it. And this is mostly
the way you just said that was like you didn't respect it anymore.
Well, it's like, what does that even mean? And I think it can mean a lot of things, but more specifically what I meant when I said that is that I want to stick to my guns and like read the books that I want to read, and not be like swayed by other people, and be swayed by, you know, if you talk about a book really passionately, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm immediately going to buy it. And so I'm adding books to my TBR when I don't need to be. It's like, if I just wait a little bit and like process, maybe I won't feel the need to buy that book. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been doing a really good job of that. The only book I've bought this year that was swayed by you was that book about forest bathing.
Which is fair enough.
Exactly. And I'm excited.
Awesome.
Like I said, I bought copies for my friends. I just gave them to them on Saturday, finally.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah.
Were they excited?
They were so excited. And so it's going to be
so awesome.
our like next book club read, because we're reading a different one first, but that's going to be the next one we read, which I think will be perfect because it's really short and it'll be really nice and it'll make us want to go outside. So anyways, that's the only book that I've bought because somebody else like bought it or talked about it. Everything else I've been very good about, just, you know, buying things that I feel like I really want. So I think I'm doing a good job on that. And then the next big goal I had, or like the TBR, specific TBR that we've created, because we always do this too. Yeah. Mine this year, well, I created a lot of TBRs, as I'll talk about shortly, but the main one is my 24 in 24 TBR. So I've picked out 24 very specific books that I've been really wanting to read, been meaning to read. Yeah. And those are the books that I have like dedicated this year to reading. So I picked 24 books, obviously. So far, I have either read or DNF'd 8 out of 24. I'm currently reading the 9th one. A Dance with Dragons is on that TBR. So I'm getting through it. I'm falling behind a little bit, obviously. At this point in the year, I should be at 12. And I'm only on number 9 right now. So I'm like, okay, I definitely need to like focus on that more, because since I'm not reading as much this year, every book I read really counts, you know, time-wise.
Yeah, like those books on that list should be basically making up half of this year's reading.
Exactly.
So like every other book you read should probably be from that
That's
book,
a good way of looking at it. But yeah, I've strayed a couple of times and I've read like 2 or 3 books in a row that weren't off that TBR, and I'm like, I'm in trouble now. But I'm really excited about what's left on the TBR. I feel like for some reason I've started with the books that I'm like collectively out of the 24, or maybe the ones that I'm not as excited about. So like I'm almost mashed potatoing myself by like saving the ones I'm most excited for the end. Although there's a few that I'm a little scared of too. For example, one of the books on that TBR is Anna Karenina, which is huge. But to shout out the other big books I have on the TBR. So there's Anna Karenina, A Dance with Dragons, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, and The Talisman by Stephen King, which are all very long books. So that's the other thing. Like some of them are quite long, so I'm going to have to put in some serious time. But I'm very excited about all of them. And then the last one I'll say for now before we throw to you for a bit is I have the goal to watch 24 A24 movies, which I think I forgot to talk about in our last update. And I have only watched 9 so far, so it's the same thing.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, I did want to shout out which ones I've watched, though, just in case anyone cares. So the ones I've watched so far are American Honey, Past Lives, Beau is Afraid, Midsummer, and Lady Bird, which are both rewatches. Oh, and The Killing of a Sacred Deer was also a rewatch. And then I watched Gloria Bell, When You Finish Saving the World, and Dream Scenario. And since you're probably going to ask what my favorite and least favorites are...
Yep,
I will say for the world right now, Beau is Afraid is probably the worst movie I've ever seen. Like, I hated it so much. A lot of people love it, though, so, like, more power to you if you love it. It was just so not for me. It was so long as well, and I was just like, I am not enjoying this movie. There were parts that I thought were good, like sequences that were very visually cool, but... Yeah, did not enjoy. But as for book or movie that I liked the most, it would probably have to be Past Lives. Although I really loved rewatching Midsummer. I liked it a lot more the second time I watched it. So yeah. And I do have a huge list of all of the ones I still want to watch. So I just need to start watching them. But yeah, so cool. That's like half of my goals. So like I said, I've got a lot more to get through. But let's hear how you're doing.
Well, I was enjoying that update. So I'm excited to get back to you because it's funny how it's not, I was about to say I care more about your goals than I do about my goals. That's not true, but I do really care about your goals. Like, I think it's really fun. In the goals episode, you literally said, this is my favorite TV show. Like, watching you talk about my goals, that made me laugh.
It is my favorite.
Okay, I guess I'll just go through, I guess you were kind of talking about your goals, so I'll just start with my goals. Sure. First of all, I had 4 goals. My first goal, is to read 100 books. This is very fun. This is very interesting and very funny, okay? Because I've never set my reading goal this high. When I started reading online, like as like a quote unquote like reader, like trying to read and make videos about reading and blah, blah, I was reading on average 50 books a year. Like I would read like 52, 54, 56. Like it was always around there without me trying is how I would say. Like I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I had nothing else to do.
Right. There was so much time.
Then I got busy because I got a job and other hobbies, blah, 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 blah. It slowed down. I was only reading like 30-ish books a year. And that just never felt good. And I'm never angry at myself about that. Like it's like it's my hobby. Like I don't want to put too much pressure on my hobby. But I missed the days where I was basically reading a book a week. And also because I knew that it wasn't just my job and it wasn't just like my life. It was that I had become very addicted to social media.
Yeah.
And so I knew that the hours I used to spend reading were now spent scrolling, and it felt bad to me. I'd rather have it the old way. So I've been trying to read more over the last few years, but I have never set a number goal. And back in the day when I was using Goodreads, I would always set my goal at 0.
Oh yeah.
Because I was like, reading shouldn't be pressure. And I still really agree with that. I have a feeling, we'll see at the end of the year, I have a feeling that if I do this, if I pull off the 100 books, I will never set a reading goal again because it is a lot of pressure and I'm thinking about it like every single day. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't read today. Oh my God, I haven't finished a book a week.
So do you feel like it's like hurting your reading? Like, is it something that you should stop? Okay.
No. Definitely not. It's not hurting. It's not bad. It is stressful, but like a good stressful. Sometimes stress is good, right? It's useful and it motivates you. It kicks you into gear, exactly. So it is like a little stressful, but not in a necessarily bad way. And so one important thing that I wanted to mention was that last year I read 33 books. This is an important bit of information because basically what I'm asking myself to do is triple my reading. Right?
Yeah.
When you put it that way, it's absurd. Here's what I'll say. So far, I'm behind, but I have doubled my reading.
Oh.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So far this year, I have read 28 books.
Oh, man. Already,
and I'm almost finished another one. So I'm basically also like, we're recording this a week before the end of the year, before the halfway point. So I believe that at the halfway point, I will be at 30.
Yeah.
That is literally, like, last year I read 34 books. In 2022, I read 28 books. I'm right now sitting at how many books I read in 2022.
Yeah, that's awesome.
In 2021, I read 27 books. Right? So, like,
so even if you don't hit the 100, like, you will have beat yourself, which I think is what counts.
This is going to be like an all-time high. I'm at in 2019, I read 21 books.
Ooh.
So, like, I know that was a particularly bad year, but, like, the only exception to this is in 2020. Obviously, the world fell apart, and I stayed home and read. So that year, I read 45 books.
Ooh, wow.
And in 2023, like I mentioned, I read 33 books. So I just need to read like 5 more books, and I'll already have beat last year, and then another couple books, and I will have beat 2020. So I am reading a lot more. Yeah. But I'm not reading enough to get to 100. Right. So this is the place that I'm at. I'm feeling good about it because I'm reading so much more. Yeah. I am prioritizing it, but I need to prioritize it even more if I possibly want to catch up. And another interesting way to think about this is kind of like what you were saying. Right now, I'm at 28 books read. Yeah. I should be at like 48. Yeah. Like 50, like in a week, I should be at 50, right? So say I'm at 30, in a week, I should be at 50. Connor was like, so you need to read 70 more books. That horrified me to hear it that way. I was like, oh my God, that's so many books. But then I was like, but wait, no, I'm not supposed to be at 70 books right now. Yeah. Right now I'm supposed to be at 50. So I'm 20% behind. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I should be at 50%. I am at 30%. Right. So I'm there's 20% of the books that I should be reading lagged. 20 books. It's a lot of books.
So are you planning on like zipping through a bunch of graphic novels or something? Like, are you going to try and catch up super quickly, or are you just going to try and like collect, like throughout the year, read a bit faster?
It's a great question. So first of all, I do really think that this year has been so busy for me with the miniature truck and with the Anne of Green Gables trip and with other, like a lot of personal family stuff. It's been really, really busy. And I know that the second half of the year won't be that busy. Yeah. Like, that's the miniature truck is built. There is no big trip coming up like the Anne of Green Gables trip. Like, there's like a lot less going on in the second half of the year for me. Yeah. So I think naturally I will just read more. Secondly, I have basically a really stressful plan that you're going to hate. For the next quarter, I'm going to focus on finishing all the TBR books I said I would read.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm going to spend the last 3 months of the year
just blasting.
Doing a marathon, a sprinting marathon. Like I am going to try and read more over the summer for sure. But like my top priority is just reading all of these other things I said I would read so that they're all done. And all I have to do in the last part of the year is like read anything, read everything, read, but not worry about what I'm reading anymore. Yeah. So that's kind of my plan. That's cool.
I kind of want to do something like that too. Like I want to just read all of my 24 and 24 TBR so that the last book is Anna Karenina and I have like 4 months to read it. That would be ideal.
That would be nice. Yeah. That's so funny. All right. My next goal, like this is one of the ones I'm talking about, is read 3 biographies. I haven't read any. Uh-oh. So I just want to read those in the next quarter and just finish that goal and not think about it for the last quarter.
TBR challenge. Here we go.
Yeah. It basically is. And then maybe I'll just shove in the rest of my TBRs here. Okay. So books I'm anticipating. This was something we talked about. Like books that were new releases this year that we wanted to read. in this last quarter, have read 2 of them. The Riddles of the Sphinx by Anna Shechtman and The Kamigawa Food Detectives by Hisashi Kashiwai. So those are checked off. The third one is Slow Dance by Rainbow Rowell, and it is not out yet. So I couldn't have read it even if I wanted to, but I do have it on pre-order.
Nice.
So
when does it come out?
Coming. July
okay, so soon.
So I can read it this quarter. So that's on my TBR for this quarter. And then my last big thing is Studious Potatoes TBR, which is like kind of stressing me out. So there are 5 books that are all like books I have on my shelves already, books that are basically mashed potato books for me now. And they're all like educational books that I thought would be really fun to read. So they are Underground, Overground, A Trillion Trees, The Elements of Style, Samurai William, and A Book on Books. And I haven't read any of those either. I know.
Scary.
So this quarter, I want to read a lot, but I want to make sure that the books that I read are The Studious Potatoes, the final new release that I wanted, Slow Dance by Rainbow Rowell, and the 3 biographies. Because if I read all of that stuff, I will have checked off a lot of my goals. Yeah. And then none of my goals left for the last part of the year are specific. It's just read as much as I can. I kind of feel like that is a good way to set this up.
I think that's great. It is stressful though. Like that is going to be tough. Because you've been wanting to read these biographies. Like last year you had goals to read biographies too, and it never really happened. So I think the problem is just kind of forgetting about them or putting them off because they're long. So I'm on board with this plan. I'm excited to see you start reading those.
Me too. So it's going to be... I don't know. It's going to be a lot of work. There's a lot to do here. I have a lot to do.
That's your focus. That you're busy reading Studious Potatoes this quarter. That's what you're busy with.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a lot of specific things I need to read. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 books that I need to read this quarter that are just to check off these multiple little lists I signed myself up for. Damn. The thing is, like, I chose these things. Like, I do want to read them. It's just like, now I got to do it.
I know putting a timeline on things can really like just shake things up in your head. You're like, oh, I was thinking about maybe reading this in 8 years, but now I have to read it right now.
Exactly.
It just changes things.
It's so funny. All right. How about we throw back to you?
Yeah.
Give us some more info.
Yeah. Talking about specific TBRs is something that I really leaned into when I was setting my goals. Yes. And like I talked about in the last quarterly update, I think I'm kind of just like putting them on pause or putting them aside because if I'm only going to read 50 books or less, like having all these specific TBRs is kind of ruining my head a little bit. But the things that I had set for myself, the first one was what I called fondant potatoes, which is like a fancy way of preparing potatoes, I guess. And so those were the 4 highest rated books that were on my TBR.
Right.
So I read Project Hail Mary, which was one of those books, but that's the only one I've read so far. And another thing I'll talk about later, I think we're going to talk about stats a little bit because I have some stats as well. Cool. I have been unhauling a lot of books that are on my TBR because I've been really looking hard at like, what am I actually excited about, etc. So my TBR has changed a little bit. So I don't know if the books that I said I was going to read are even still on my TBR. Like I've been doing lots of big changes over here. So I think that Project Hail Mary might be the only one that I read from that TBR this year. And I think that that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
The next one is called Uncooked Potatoes, which were the 4 lowest rated books on my TBR.
Yes.
And I read Sweet Bitter, which was one of them. And then I also,
you loved that.
Yeah, it was great. I'm really glad that I read that.
Funny.
But then another one that was on that list was the Nakano Thrift Shop, which I tried to read and ended up DNFing.
Right.
So,
yes.
But still, like, I feel good about having conquered 2 of those books. Like 2 of the books that were lowest on my TBR, I've read or tried to read. Okay. So I feel good about that. And then the next one that was kind of in that same category was the 4 oldest books on my TBR. And so I did successfully read Colorless Tsukuru Tazuki and His Years of Pilgrimage by Haruki Murakami. That was one of them. That was great. And then I also tried to read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which I ultimately DNF'd.
Yeah.
So I did a couple. Another one was the Queen of the Tearling, which I do hope to maybe read this year still, like just because I'm kind of in a fantasy mood and I'm thinking maybe I'll actually do it. And I think the 4th one might have been Anna Karenina. So I might actually, this might be the one that I actually complete just because of the way I set it up. But yeah, I'm not putting too much pressure on those ones because my main goal is the 24 and 24 TBR and reading under 50 books, which was one like the next thing I was going to get to. And so far, I'm definitely on track for that because I've read a total of 23 books so far this year. And if we're at the halfway point of the year, I'm under 25, which is what I need to be at. So far, that's working out. And like I said, I have some really long books to read. So I think that as long as I stick to my 24 and 24 TBR, it'll be okay.
How are you feeling, like, emotionally, psychologically about that goal of reading under 50 books? Like, maybe you could tell everyone, like, why you wanted to do that, and if that reason that you wanted to do it is actually working.
Yeah, okay, that's a great question, a great little discussion topic. So the reason that I wanted to do it is because I put so much pressure on myself. Like, it's all coming from me, and for no reason, is that I just want to read all the time. I want to be reading as much as I possibly can. I want to, and it's not even just because I want to, like, reach a number goal or something. For some reason, I think it's partly because I have so many unread books on my shelves, which is part of why I'm trying to get rid of some of them.
Interesting.
It's like, I just have so many, and so I'm like, well, I have to read as many as I can, because if I have 150 books on my TBR, I can only read so much in 1 year. I'll still have so many, and I keep buying more. And so I'm like in this cycle of always having too much to read. And so I think what I'm trying to do is just like mellow out a little bit, spend more time working on other hobbies, like not giving myself that pressure of like, oh, I shouldn't take the time to crochet a tank top because I should be reading. I should be finishing. I could finish a whole book in that time. And so I just like, I'm trying to break myself free of that like cycle that I have in my own head, which I feel like is not like a healthy way to look at reading. And so that's the main thing, is I just want to like slow down and not try to read too much. And the other thing is that gives me time, like it gives me the allowance to read longer books as well, and things that are going to take a little longer, which is something that I really want to do, because I hate when I just avoid those long books on my TBR. Like, that's partly why I haven't read A Dance with Dragons until now. It's like, it's just so long. It's going to take me weeks and weeks to read. There's like, I could have read a dozen books in the time that it would take me to read that. And so now I'm just like, just let it go. And I feel good about it. The thing that keeps stressing me out is that my 24 and 24 TBR is the only thing that I'm like, oh, every time I stray from it, I'm like, oh, that's one less book I can read that's not on that TBR. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah.
So as of right now, I think I have like 16 more books from that TBR to read, and I have room to read like 27 books or whatever. So I feel like I've got a little bit of wiggle room, but that's the only thing that's stressing me out. So at the end of the year, we'll see. If I go over 50, so be it, whatever. Like, I'm not too worried, but I feel good that it's working so far.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're like, I want to read, but if I read right now, I think I would get too close to my goal. Like, might pass 50, so I guess I should do something else.
Well, it hasn't quite happened yet because we're still so far away from 50.
True.
Like,
okay, so maybe that'll start happening near the end.
Yeah, I think near the end we'll see. And I might have to just be like, I guess it's time to read The Count of Monte Cristo because I need to slow down. Like, that might be what happens. But I honestly think I've been I have been really busy with other things as well. So naturally I've just been reading less. So as of right now, I think I'll probably be okay. But
that's interesting.
We'll see what happens.
Cool.
We'll see what happens.
Okay.
But then one of my other goals was that I wanted the average of the publication year of all the books I read to be less than 2004. Right now, it is at 2003.4.
That's so funny.
I'm really skating that line right now. I might go over. And it's funny because people were like, oh, if you just do the average, that's so lame. Like, all you have to do is read one really old book and then everything else can be from the 2020s. But I'm still just skating that line. I did read one really old book and it's not saving me right now. So we will see. Like,
well, I mean, I guess it kind of is. It is saving you, but like,
but if I read one more book that's like from 2010 or whatever, it'll ruin me. So I do have a lot of books on my 24 and 24 TBR that are classics and are older. So I know that like once I read more, it'll balance out. But right now I'm like, woo, I can't read another new release for a little while.
That's interesting. I mean, that is kind of was the point of the goal, was to stop yourself from reading new releases. So
yeah, I think that it's working. I think that I'm doing pretty well when it comes to that. And then my last like big goal was sort of similar to you, was just to get offline, quit Instagram, stop spending so much time scrolling. And I definitely think that I have succeeded in that. Like, every morning I do the Wordle and I do the connections puzzle. And those are the only things that I like check my email and stuff, obviously. But then after that, I'm like, I have no reason to be on here. And so I get off my phone as much as I possibly can. And I feel like it's been doing well. I've crocheted more this year than I ever have.
Yeah.
I've been working out, which I haven't really talked about a lot, but like Kyle and I spend a lot of time at the gym and like going for walks. And I really still want to roller skate. That's still on my list. I haven't quite gotten back into that yet, but I have just been spending more time like not reading and not worrying about reading so much. So I feel pretty good. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
It seems like it's working out. Okay, my other 2 goals, kind of the only other 2 things that I needed to do. So I had 4 goals and I had 3 TBRs, right? So my TBRs were read 3 biographies.
Yeah.
The books I'm anticipating, the new releases, and the Studious Potatoes. So I've talked about the TBRs. I've talked about the first 2 goals, read 100 books, read 3 biographies. My other 2 goals were finish visiting every bookshop in Nova Scotia.
Oh, yeah.
So I had mentioned I was going to tell you guys where I bought Western Lane by Chetna Maru. I will now mention I have been to 2 new bookshops in the last few weeks. So I visited Novelty. It's spelled Novel, novel, space, TEA.
Very good.
As in tea, because they sell tea. I visited Novelty in Truro, because it's like near Prince Edward Island. So when I was going, I was like, I should make sure to stop at a shop.
Yes.
Some shop on my way. So I visited there, and it was a very cute bookshop. I have added some B-roll here for it, I'm sure. But I'll also put some photos and stuff on the website where I'm like tracking all of this. I've noticed that I fell behind on updating that blog. So I need to chase up on that blog and update that. But it was a very cute shop. It was mainly used books and then had a very small new section, but that's where they had Western Lane.
Nice.
So that worked out well. And then literally the day before yesterday, I went to Open Book Coffee in Halifax. This was a fun little trip that I did, Raeleen. Basically, we were hanging out. We found out that there was a new cafe in the North End. And we were like, that'll be fun. Let's go see it. It's called Apria. And it was great. It's a new Italian restaurant cafe run by like an Italian family. They were super nice, great coffee, great spaghetti. And we like met there, but I knew we were going to be there. And it was basically 45-minute walk north to get to Open Book Coffee. And I was like, would you guys want to go on a big walk with me? It was just me, Connor, CJ, and our friend. And I was like, would you want to go up? All the way up to the top of the peninsula and go to this bookshop that I haven't been to. And they were like, yeah, let's go. And I had a great time. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Like, it kind of feels like it's in an industrial park.
Okay.
Which has its benefits in that it feels like a little oasis and it feels like very secluded, which is kind of nice. But on the other hand, I'm like, they're definitely not getting foot traffic. And like, you'd have to go out of your way to go there. But what was really cool is that it's run by the husband of one of the co-owners of Nimbus Publishing, which is the biggest publisher of books in Atlantic Canada. So Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland and Labrador, all of that is Atlantic Canada. So this is like the biggest publisher and distributor, the biggest distributor of books from around here. And so in the back of this really cute bookshop, it's a very cute bookshop and it has a great cafe. In the back of it is this massive warehouse of all of the books that they distribute across Canada, but the rest of the world too, because they're just a massive distributor. And so I was telling the owner of the bookshop, I was telling him all about my miniature truck and everything. And he was like, you gotta come see the back of the warehouse. And he showed me the warehouse. I was like, this is so cool. And it was really cool as well to like see, they had like some bins that were like damaged books that they need to return, and they had a bin of like receiving books that they still have to process. And I was like, this is so funny because I am doing this on the micro scale
you're just
home.
learning this now.
But it is the exact same. It's the exact same. It's just like way scaled up, you know? So that was really cool to see that. And so the book selection is all books published and distributed by Nimbus in the bookshop, which was cool as well. So they were all like Atlantic Canada titles, which is neat. And I met a subscriber, JP. They were so nice. They they were making coffee. They were the barista. They were really friendly. So it was a fun visit and another bookshop checked off the list. So that brings me to 24 shops visited out of, I believe, the original 42 shops that I knew about. Okay. I think originally I thought there was 39 or something. This is what's become very complicated. Like, new bookshops keep opening. The list keeps slightly changing. And like, in some ways that I count the list, there's 46 bookshops. In other ways I count the list, there's 40 bookshops. So I'm having a little bit of a hard time counting. But I would say that I'm about 56% on this list. I'm not worried about this for a very clear reason. I always knew this was a summer-fall activity. Mm-hmm. It's not fun to drive across Nova Scotia in the winter. Like, that was just never going to happen. And then springtime, similarly, is just slushy and like snowy and cold and dark. Like, it's fine. Now it's summer and I've started going to bookshops again.
Yeah, it's happening.
As long as I kick this into gear for the summertime, we'll be all good.
Cool. And
then my final goal, build and operate a bookmobile. I have put myself at 99% on this goal because I thought that the goal was build a bookmobile, but then, like you said, I went back and listened to the episode where I actually the part where I talked about my goals, and I said build and operate. God damn it. And so because I haven't,
first event.
I have to do my first event. Once I do one event, I will get to check this goal off.
Amazing.
But I can't check it off. I'm so annoyed because if the event had happened on the weekend, I would have been able to check this goal off.
But
and
basically,
just be like, I did.
Yeah.
Basically, I can check it off, but I can't until I've done it. So next weekend or next episode, I should be able to announce that I've checked off this big goal.
Amazing.
Okay, so that's the rest of my stuff. What did you wanted to look at some stats?
Just like, I only wrote down a couple. So my stats were like reading and also like hauling a little bit. So
cool.
Like I mentioned, I have read 23 books so far this year, and 18 of them were from my physical TBR. So that was something I wrote down because I thought that was interesting. And then my TBR fluctuation was something else I wanted to talk about a little bit because I have a spreadsheet that's just called TBR, and at the beginning of it has like all these different columns. So it's got each month for the whole year, and then the columns are start of the month, how many books I read, if I unhauled any books, if I DNF'd any books, and then if I bought any. So it shows how my TBR goes down and goes up, and then I have a column for the end of the month. So at the beginning of the year, beginning of January, I had 160 books on my TBR, and as of right now, I have 131 if you count the one I'm reading. So Dance with Dragons, if once I'm finished that, I'll be down to 130. So through all of this, I'll only have gone down 30 books, but I have bought quite a few. I don't have, how many did I buy? I did write it down. I have bought 39 books so far.
Oh, that's
and I've only read 18 books off of my TBR. So I have unhauled a bunch. I've DNF'd 3 so far. And I bought those 39. So it's been like a big fluctuation, but I've kept it sort of weirdly almost even. Like, I'm now at 130. I have unhauled a total of 43 books off of my TBR. Woo! So my what's coming in and going out is almost the same.
Do you know how many books you've bought this year compared to last year at this point?
Absolutely, I do have that data. So I'm at 39 for this year. Last year, books acquired. Oh boy, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm still scrolling. Okay. Last year I bought 114.
By this point?
No, I don't. By this point, let's see. By beginning of July or end of June, I had bought 49.
49. And this year you've bought 39.
39. So I'm not that far behind. Like, I am being kind of bad still.
But that is interesting because if you bought, you said 150-ish books you bought last year?
Yeah.
So that means most of your book buying last year happened in the second half of the year.
Yeah, I went crazy in the second half.
Because if you'd only, up to this point, you'd only bought 49 books.
Yeah.
And then in the next part of the year, you bought 100 more.
115, not 50.
Oh, 115.
Yeah.
Okay, still it is the same. Like, you did buy more books in the second half than you did in the first half. Not as bad as
just
I thought.
A little bit, yeah.
But still, you got to watch out, really. Apparently, you become unhinged in the second half of the year.
Well, I'm looking at it too. Like, I got a lot of books around my birthday, and 12 of them were books I had already read. Like, my brother gifted me a series of books, The Saga of Darren Shan, which I had already read. So, like, I don't, it's a little bit.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, some of them were gifts, some of them I had already read. So it's not like I was really going crazy and just buying a bunch of books to read. So, yeah, there's a little bit of gray area there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
any other stats?
I think that's kind of it. Like I have some other things that will be stats at the end of the year. Like I'll have graphs and things, but I'm not making the graphs yet because I don't want the graphs to like change how I read. I don't want to see like, oh no, I've read only books from America, so I should change that. Like I want it to be true and raw. And so I'm going to just let it happen and see what happens by the end of the year. So that's where I'm at.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, as for my stats, I mean, I've read 5 books that I would consider mashed potato books.
Ooh, okay.
By this point in the year: Homesick for Another World, Of Mice and Men, It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken, Novelist as Vocation, and The Rules Do Not Apply. Those are books that I've just had on my shelves for so long, have been meaning to read, awesome. So I'm happy about that. I've only read 3 books that I would consider new favorites. That to me is shocking.
I think I've only read 2 that I would consider new favorites.
Yeah.
So that's
Brooklyn by Colm Tobin, which I liked, but I didn't even give it 5 stars. I gave it 4 stars. Right? Am I crazy? Am I making stuff up? Yeah, I gave it 4 stars.
Interesting.
Which I stand by.
Yeah.
The True Deceiver by Tove Jansson. I give that 5 stars. So far, that's my favorite book of the year. And then The Moomins and the Great Flood.
What a list.
I mean, it was a perfect little book. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's not like a book that I'm going to be recommending to everyone all of the time. Right. So I'm kind of conflicted about that because I don't really know how to change that.
Yeah, like what?
I'm just reading books that I want to read. It just so happens that I'm not hitting 5
stars.
Yeah,
you can't control if they're going to be favorites or not.
You can't control that. Yeah, that's really tricky. One thing that I wanted to point out was that in the winter, I read 14 books.
Ooh.
In the spring, I read 10. So I read more in the first part of this year than I did in the springtime of this year. Like between January and March 21st, I read more than I read between March 21st and June 21st.
Ooh. Mine's pretty equal, actually, now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah, 50-50. And like that feels right to me because I feel like I started the year a bit stronger than the last few months. But that, like, again, when I look back, I'm like, okay, but I had that 2-week trip to England, the 1-week trip to Green Gables, all of the prep for the truck.
You've been really busy.
I've been busy, so I get why I've read less, but I want the summer to be juicier.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are kind of all the stats that I wanted to pull for now.
Nice. That's a pretty juicy update. So basically, both of us are a little behind, but we are confident that we can still make it happen.
Yes. Yes. None of these feel like they're gone to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, none of the goals to me right now feel like, that's it. We're screwed.
Yeah, the 3rd quarterly update will be where things really start happening. And I told Ariel this. I am going to announce what all the rest of the books are that are on my 24 and 24 TBR, because hopefully by that point it'll be like 10 books or less. So I will feel confident sharing those last few titles. There's so many left. I don't want to list all of them. It's too much, but that's my goal is to release that to the world.
I feel the same. I'm like, by that 3rd quarterly update, if I've done what I'm hoping to do here, I will definitely have built and operated a bookmobile.
Yeah.
I will definitely have read all of my new releases, all my Studious Potatoes, and my 3 biographies. So all I'll have left for the last part of the year is to catch up and achieve the read 100 books and keep visiting bookshops in Nova Scotia. So
pretty laid back. That sounds pretty sweet.
I feel like I have a plan. I just have to follow through with the plan.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we should start checking in with each other more. Like, are you doing your goals?
Like just you and me.
Yeah. Just like every few weeks. Just like, hey,
how's that going?
Are you reading a biography yet?
Yeah. So that'll be fun to follow up with each other, but also, of course, with everyone here on the podcast. So We hope that you enjoyed this big quarterly update. We always love doing these. They're so much fun. And I do find them very like reinvigorating. I'm like, no, I can do this. And then we go back to the punches. You need that little inspo. Oh, you know what would be fun to show everyone right now? And I'll also post a photo of this on the Instagram. I have the giant decals for the truck.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that so sick? I've got to go
good.
put these on today, but like it's been raining, and so you're not supposed to place them when it rains, I guess. So I haven't been able to put them on the truck. But oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is I have been drinking out of my new mug.
Oh my gosh.
I'm thinking about books mug. It says it's a diner style mug that in forest green writing along the top rim says I'm thinking about books. That is available on besetbooks.com if you want to check that out. Pretty excited that is finally out in the world.
It's so cute.
I've been waiting on that one, so that's exciting if you want to check that out. All right, thank you guys so much. We're gonna go record our Patreon mini podcast. Is it Movie Tub this week?
Let's talk about movies,
where we talk about movies that we've been watching, and we will talk to you all next week. Bye.